playoff implications, need to knows, and a Jared Patterson interview. Texan fans, let's swarm together on today's weekend show of the Locked On Texans podcast.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Shout out to all my swarmers out there in L.A. Houston Texans, 3:30 game today. I am your Texas Credential Media member and football analyst, John Hickman. Got a fun show for you today on this weekend episode edition of the Locked On Texans. Social media comments, y'all have been killing it. YouTube's, Twitter, Facebook. We're going to dive into all of these comments. Got a Jared Patterson interview that will be fun post-game after the Raiders game. He stepped in due to another different offensive line combination for injuries purposes. Play well. Will we see more of him today? Will we see more of Blake Fisher today? The status for a couple of important Houston Texans are up in the air, and that's kind of where we're going to kick it off today. Just need to know going into the game and what this game can be, the importance of this game, rather, is for the Houston Texans. But to all my everydayers from the Himalayas, thank you for making Locked On Texans your first listen of the day, for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the nation. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Houston can clinch its playoff spot with a win today. Even with a loss, the Texans would make the playoffs if the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Indianapolis Colts. Plus, a victory today would push Houston over LA in the AFC rankings, with the Texans holding the head-to-head tiebreaker. Both teams would be 11-5. Houston will go to 6. LA will go to 7, and if Buffalo will go to 5. And if Buffalo loses, Houston would jump to 5. As we know, Houston has the head-to-head matchup tiebreaker over the Buffalo Bills. Now, question for the fans: I want to hear how you guys feel. What would be the more favorable matchup that you like to see for the Houston Texans going into the playoffs in the first round? Pittsburgh, if Houston gets 5. The Jacksonville Jaguars, which honestly I think would be extremely fun. We would get another crossover with Locked On Jags. That'll be the third time they meet, so we can look at that game as the tiebreaker. We know the Jags won it early in the year. Houston had that late fourth quarter victory rally by Davis Mills and the defense. I think that'll be a fun one, right? The teams are so much different from when they originally played. The Jags are a much better team. Houston obviously on their win streak right now, anchored by their defense. Jags getting it done. Trevor Lawrence playing some great football. So a third matchup would be fun, in my opinion. But a lot of you guys that I talk to, whether it's in the street, social media, y'all know me, right? And so if Houston stays at 7, they would probably play the New England Patriots. And I got to tell you, for that game, I'm going to be outside. Wherever you guys are watching that game, I want to be where you are. So I think that'll be fun for Houston as well. The Jags or New England, if Houston gets 6 or if Houston stays at 7, that's who they play. But let's look at some need-to-knows for today's game. Trent Brown officially ruled out. Rookie Aireontae Ersery is questionable. If he doesn't go, I think the expectation is for Titus Howard to slide over to left tackle, Jared Patterson in at left guard. Blake Fisher would start at right tackle. So Blake Fisher wouldn't have to worry about reporting to the refs this week. If that is the case, well, that'll be the case anyways, because Trent Brown ain't playing, so he'll be at that right tackle spot. But I think what we're waiting on now is how Houston will go about the left tackle spot. Now, I'm curious if they decide if Aireontae is able to go, will they slide Howard over to right tackle, or will they trust Blake Fisher at right tackle? I think they should roll with Blake Fisher out there. All things considered, I know this is a game that Houston absolutely wants to win. Blake Fisher, when he's been out there to pass block this year, whether it's been Jumbo or filling in at tackle. He hasn't been bad. And I also think because of how good this Chargers defense is right now, negative 0.145 EPA, lowest passer rating allowed this year, 74.5. This is a very good defense. Those edge defenders and all around do a good job of getting after the quarterback. This would be a great challenge and test for Blake Fisher, but also for the Houston Texans to see what they have in Blake Fisher for next year moving forward. Can he be the franchise right tackle, or do they need to revisit some things? So I think that's just to put that little nugget out there. However, we talked about different ways for Houston to win this game on the squad show this week, and I think this will be a tough game. It's hard for me to pick the Houston Texans in this game. It's actually hard for me to pick the Chargers because I can't bet against D'Amico Ryans. So I'm not necessarily going to pick, right? I picked the Chargers on the crossover show, but it's hard for me to bet against D'Amico and his defense and what they've been able to do this year. But there will be some things that will play in the favor for Houston. The Chargers are just as bad at missed tackles as Houston is. If runners can get to the second level, they could make a man or two miss and get extra yards. That will help them win the time of possession. I also think this is the importance of having Aireontae Ersery out there because going back to some games this year where the Chargers' run defense struggled, I go to the Jacksonville Jaguars game where they almost rushed for 200 yards on the Chargers. How did they do that? Well, I realized dominating the Chargers up front for the Jags O-line, number one, but how they dominated attacking the edge of the Chargers defense. They did a very good job of getting out on that edge. The, the tackles were involved. The tight ends were heavily involved. Houston will need that. Houston will need that. And also, like I said, tight end unit going to have to show up big for him. Cade Stover, he is not expected to be heavy in the passing game in terms of getting out there running routes and catching passes. However, where he can show his value this year, specifically in this playoff type of matchup, being dominant in that effort on the edge in the run game. I don't know that Cade Stover is a player that Houston will look to have return back next year. Maybe they could look to move on from him. I don't think Cade Stover has done enough to show Houston that he should be have a prominent role as a tight end too. Maybe that's an upgrade for Houston. I think so personally. But if there's any moment in any game of the year that Houston needs you to show your value, Cade Stover, I think it's this game today. So let's see how that plays out. And obviously, we know that Dalton Schultz will be impactful in the passing game as he's been all year. And just looking at the Chargers defense whenever they struggle against the run, 11 personnel, 5 yards per carry, 21 personnel, 4.1 yards per carry, 22 personnel, 6.9 yards per carry. So, maybe Houston can find some holes in that defense. Today is a great test for Houston. Playoff kind of game. I think everybody will be looking out for who will step up from a player perspective. But for Houston, the first thing for them to do to win the game is doing the small things right. No penalties. They did a very good job last week of cutting down on the penalties. Good special team play, right? Limit the missed tackles. And from there, let's see which of the backs will step up. Will we see more of Nick Chubb in this game? All things considered, Chubb has been still Houston's best runner in terms of yards per carry. So I think Nick Chubb needs to be featured just a little bit more today, and maybe on first downs a lot more, right? When you put Woody out there, maybe Jawar Jordan, but Woody out there on second and third, because now that opens up the offense. You can still run with him on second down, but you trust Woody Marks in terms of being able to pick up blitzes on third down in the passing game. So maybe we'll see more of Nick Chubb on first down. But it all starts up front, right? And due to injuries, the offensive line combo will switch again. Last week, Jared Patterson, Blake Fisher stepped in. They played well. Let's hear from Jared Patterson on being ready, what the challenges were against the Raiders, and more on today's episode when we return back. However, before we dive into that conversation, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot. Nico Collins, will that be you today? A defense tightens up. Will Anderson will be getting a major third down sack, or the momentum flips after a turnover. Kamari Lassiter, they ain't respecting you in these Pro Bowl voters, dog. Will you get another one today to add to your belt? FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as the guys get hot. You can bet the next touchdown score, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And also, Texas fans, it is important for me to remind you about the value of Game Time. One of my favorite apps, guys. Literally. NFL season is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. Houston has one more home game. The crowd noise, the energy, the cheering alongside fans you don't even know. You guys became friends at the game. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits a little different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. That's why Game Time app gives you all of the advantage, fans. It's the hack of unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Why do I love Game Time? The zone deal stood out for me. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seat, and you save even more. Seeing NFL tickets available for around $100 made it easy to plan game day trips. And not just the NFL, NBA, right? Rockets tickets over there looking good, man. Concert tickets as well. Knowing tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives you a real peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Texas fans, it is important to acknowledge that when this team goes through adversity up front at the offensive line, the offense looks different, right? With Trent Brown out there, with Titus Howard at left guard, with Aireontae Ersery continue to ascend in his young career. By the way, this young man's been playing some good football. Ed Ingram, playing good football. Andrews in the middle, being the middleman. The offensive line, in terms of being able to protect the quarterback, which is what you want for a quarterback that's been banged up and beat up a lot, it's changed. It's improved. It's a whole lot better. And so that's why it's kind of hard to choose Houston in this one, guys, simply because, hey, I see the value and I recognize the value of Trent Brown before he took a snap. My everyday is from the Himalayas. Remember me saying this way back in the offseason. If Trent Brown was healthy, he'd be Houston's best offensive lineman. I said that a long time ago. When Trent Brown has been inserted into the lineup, whether it's been Davis Mills or CJ Stroud, the hits have been reduced. Now, Houston has struggled with running the ball. I understand that. Today is going to be a challenge for Houston across the board up front. I am curious to see how they respond to it. But let's get to this Jared Patterson interview from last week after the Raiders game. We talked about, the challenges the Raiders front presented them with, the challenges of going up against that defense, and then just more. So stick around. Let's talk Texans with Jared Patterson. What were some of the challenges the Raiders defensive front was presenting to you guys today when you had an opportunity to get into the game, and just what were you seeing from the sideline as well?
I mean, schematically, play a lot of guys in the box. I mean, Jamal Adams, Jeremy Chin, they'll run some dime package and nickel. Even their base defense, they'll put three backers and, Chin down there. For asking a receiver to block a guy who, 6'3", 230. Like, it's almost like another linebacker in there. That's kind of what they do. Also, like the different coverages they run, the amount of zone they play, things they change up. Like, people look at the record, the team, may not be having the year they had, but you look at stats. I mean, they're top 5 yards per carry. They're top 10 in both eliminating explosive runs and pass. They're second in TFLs or no gain runs coming in. Really, where they struggled was the red zone, some third down and missed tackles. But all around, like, they've actually been playing pretty good for the most part on defense for most of the year. And they just, they played really hard. They're well coached. They have a good scheme, and I give them credit where credit's due.
Yeah, this is one of those games where just looking at some of the film and then looking at the numbers, it felt like this could be somewhat of a trap game. How are you guys able to identify opponents and identify their weaknesses, but find ways to win so it won't be a trap game? It'll just be another win for you guys on this 7-game win streak.
Yeah, I mean, outside of people say trap game, but like the NFL, like it's any given week. Like those guys get paid too, So like, you got to come strap it up every Sunday. And we did for most of the game. We didn't play how we wanted to on offense, but I mean, we closed out for the most part pretty solid fourth quarter to put it away, and that's kind of been the theme throughout the games we've been winning. Is compared to early in the year, we're finishing much better, especially on the offensive side of the ball when we need to.
What was the game plan going into this game, and what did you guys practice on to be prepared for this Raiders defense?
Yeah, I mean, schematically, it's a little different, just like the amount of guys they pack in the box. So try to change up some of the run schemes and IDs and just being on point. Obviously, got to be ready for some of the blitz zero they brought, like the last play of the game where CJ made a heck of a throw to Nico. They brought some pressure, so just little things like that. I mean, like I said, Patrick Graham, I think he's a pretty good coordinator, and honestly, he's probably underrated.
You mentioned the Nico Collins catch, man. Just what is it like having him on your sideline, man? When the play needed to be made, you can trust Nico Collins to do that. What does that mean for your offense?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we kind of knew it. We kind of expecting pressure on that play, and obviously Nico gets one-on-one opportunity, and when Nico's got a one-on-one, you're probably gonna put your money on him just about every time. So having him in there doing his thing, I mean, it's special watching him out there. He's fantastic, great person too.
One thing that I picked up on, once again, you had an opportunity to enter the game. Once Trent Brown goes down, Houston had to move Titus Howard back over.
Yeah.
This is what he does, but on the year, he's having his best year altogether. What is it like just having sharing a room with Titus Howard? What have you been able to learn from Titus Howard? And can you just speak on just his performance this year altogether, which he talked about a little bit last week, could be a Pro Bowl year?
Yeah, I mean, he's the ultimate team guy. I mean, every year I've been here, I think even before this, like, he's had to play guard, he's had to play tackle. I mean, I think he's played every position, started the game every position except center.
They may need to try him out at center maybe one of these days, maybe in some practice.
He can snap the ball up. He's shown us. But, I mean, man, like, have a guy like that who's willing to do whatever it takes to help the team win, like, that's huge. I mean, obviously, like, most people know him as tackle, but, like, he's gone there at guard. I know he's done some left tackle earlier in his career, so having someone like him, his experience, he's extremely smart too, knows the playbook. He really thinks like a center out there. He'll call stuff out. Like, it's nice having him in there, and I just got to give him credit. He's a great person off the field too, and I just love playing with him, love being around him.
Lastly, the rookie Aireontae Ersery may have had one of his best games in his young career. What are some of the things that you're seeing from him in his progression week in and week out? He was on the island a lot today. He's been on the island a lot throughout the entire year. That trust factor there, what's that about?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you got to play O-line as a rookie, your rookie year is tough, but especially at left tackle. And, I mean, for him, like, he's just gotten better every single week. He's taking the coaching. He's learned the scheme really well, and he works hard every week and doesn't complain, just comes in, does his thing, and, proud of him. Like, he's faced some really good players this year, and he's going to keep facing good players here for a long time, because I truly believe that he'll be the next one, and he's just going to keep working and keep getting better.
Is there anything that you want to see improve from today's game?
Yeah, you got to start a lot faster. Can't start like that. Eventually, where we want to go, eventually, can't have starts like that. You got to play 4 quarters of football. You can't just have one, great quarter at the end of the game or middle. Like, it's got to be consistent all around. I think it's just the biggest thing for everybody.
That was Jared Patterson, and I agree with his last point for the Houston Texans. Not only for today's game, but moving forward, they have to play 4 quarters of good football up to their standard that they set for themselves. Now, social media comments when we return. Y'all been talking a lot, man. What y'all been talking about? Let's dive into it. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily action with fantasy. Pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. The early payout feature is a great bonus that they have now. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early, which I think that's a huge bonus, right? Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the app, and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Texan fans, we are one. We are one, man. We are all looking for the Houston Texans to pull it out today. They've won so many close and critical games this year to get back to a place where, hey, they can get to the playoffs, right? And I think that's one of the more remarkable things all year. So I look at some of these comments. James Cook, the offense has been pretty consistent also. It consistently isn't very good. A lot of people kind of killed me last week when I mentioned, hey, man, I think that for the Houston Texans, we got to hold off on blaming Nick Caley for everything. I don't think we should put everything on Nick Caley. And people continue to blame Nick Caley, and I'm big on let's see what the players are doing so often in the NFL now. And Phillip Rivers what Phillip Rivers did Monday Night Football, I believe, against the 49ers. I thought that was the best way people who grew up watching that era of football and quarterback could explain the difference between today's NFL quarterbacking and past NFL quarterbacking. Well, we got to look at some of these quarterbacks, and granted, CJ Stroud only 3 years in, right? This is still their best players on this team are still younger players. So I think we have to be fair with judging that. But we can't expect for the offensive coordinator to do everything and then make the pass and then make the throw and then make the read. So we got to be fair in some of these things, man. And I think that this is fair to say. Here's another Jordan Hanson. This is on Facebook as well. This is when I talked about the Texans must clean up on penalties for them, for that team to have a shot in the playoffs. Jordan Hanson said, "This is my fear and issue on the offensive side, especially if we have to go to New England or Denver. We already have to battle the elements. Can't be behind the sticks all game." Jordan Hanson, you sound like DeMeco Ryans. You sound exactly like DeMeco Ryans. So it's been frustrating. It was good to see Houston cut down on those penalties against the Raiders, right? But throughout the year, it feels like Houston to get it right, and then they'll get it wrong. Houston to get it right, and then they'll get it wrong. But they're getting it wrong more times than they're getting it right. So again, today, when we talk about doing the small things right, before we can even look to what player is going to step up, and should we see more of this personnel, before we even get to the deep dive into that conversation, Houston has to do those small things right. And one of them has been this year getting those penalties down. Houston has to get those penalties down, because what's going to happen if they don't, right? We've seen big plays erased off the board because of penalties. That hurts. That hurts your offense. And then the morale kind of gets down. It's like, again, Again, we can't get these things right, but then you're going to force your quarterback into more long down situations. And when the offense is in a long down situation, then you take away an element of running the ball. We know that when Houston is able to run the ball successfully for over 100 yards, they are able to score more points. And it's hard to run the ball if you're facing 39. When you're trying to win the game, especially when this is early in the game, not in the fourth quarter where maybe you're looking to ice the game, but early in the game, it's hard to run the ball successfully on 39. So you want to see this team in third and short, and penalties hurt that just as much as negative plays. That's the fact of it all. The Texans might have a dynamic backfield. And for a lot of you guys disagree with me on that, but a lot of you didn't watch the full show for context. The Texans could have a dynamic backfield. I got a lot of disagreements in that comment section on Facebook. Hey, the thing is, Houston has, in many ways, and this may be due to age, and this may be due to some lingering injury that they're not disclosing, which Houston doesn't do that. But in many ways, this year they have negated and kind of removed Nick Chubb from the game plan, right? And again, when I talk about Nick Chubb and how good he's been for Houston, it hasn't been all pretty. It ain't been all pretty, but the last time Nick Chubb got over 11 carries was against Denver. Since then, 5 carries, 3 carries, 6 carries, 9 carries, 1 carry, 6 carries. So that formula for Houston may need to change a bit. 6 carries against the Vegas Raiders, 33 yards. Not bad. 5.5 yards per carry. Against the Jags, 5 carries, 47 yards, 9.4 yards per carry. Now, it ain't been all pretty, right? He's had a couple of 6 carries, 16 yards, 2.7, right? 9 carries, 34 yards, 3.8. He's had a couple of misses, but just involving him in the game plan altogether, I think it's smart because that will allow for Woody Marks and Jawar Jordan to be themselves in a dynamic way. Woody Marks, in my opinion, is viewed as a guy that can be a little bit better out of the backfield, great pass blocker out of the backfield, a good runner, needs to improve. But this offensive line has to help their offensive weapons out. And they have to help out their running backs. They don't do a good job of that. They've done a much better job in protecting the quarterback. Much better job. But they got to open up some of these rushing lanes. They got to secure their initial first level block. They got to get up to the second level and move a guy. Put a hat on the hat. Make some space for some of these running backs to get skinny, get up the hole, and make a play. Turn 4 into 6, turn 6 into 12. Right? Let's see some of that, and maybe we can view this running back room a little bit differently. But for what it's worth right now, I think this is, all things considered, a solid backfield that has running backs that brings different elements to the game. The offensive line has to give them an opportunity to showcase them, and play calling has to help with that as well. We need to see more of Woody Marks catching passes out of the backfield. Maybe some Texas routes, maybe just some flare routes, maybe just, dumping it off. Who knows, right? But just see a little bit more of that. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Also on Instagram, where you'll see a lot of my Locked On Texans work and my Ford Times work at Some Sports Guy. We're going up all 2026. Until next time, we have a Victory Monday, Victory Sunday. We'll see. We'll talk more Texans on the other side. Peace.